Welcome back to Adventure Recaps. Today I am going to explain a horror and comedy movie, Bad Milo 2013. The movie begins and we see a man named Duncan. He is running fast towards his house. He comes to his house and asks his wife to hide quickly. His wife Sarah starts asking him what happened, but Duncan starts telling her to hide without telling him anything. Fearing this, Sarah goes to the basement room and hides. Someone breaks the door and Duncan sees it and starts screaming loudly. Meanwhile, 5 days earlier, where Duncan is having an ultrasound in the hospital, the nurse was very confused while doing the ultrasound because she sees strange things in Duncan's stomach. While seeing this, the nurse tells him to talk to the doctor about it. After that, Duncan and his wife start talking to the doctor. Duncan asks, "What's wrong with me?" The doctor tells him that you have polyposis in your stomach and it is not a problem. We can get rid of it easily with the help of treatment. We just have to put one loop behind you and with his help we will get him out. The doctor then starts asking him about his family and if anyone else has this problem. At this, Duncan tells him that his mother is fine and his dad lives apart from them now. The doctor tells him to go to a good therapist and he tells him not to take too much stress. The next day, Duncan goes to the office. There his head officer removes him from the job of accountant and puts him in the job of human resources, in which his job was to hire people from the company. Then his head introduced him to a servant named Alistair who will help him with this work. He then goes to a therapist at his wife's request. He tells him the whole story. The therapist tells him to do hip losers, but Duncan forbids him to do so and says, "I don't believe them all." After that, he comes home and spends time with his family. There is also a boy named Bobby and his family. Duncan's mother had called Dr. Lawrence home for this. Here he tells Duncan that he can cure him by treating him, but he refuses to do any treatment. Now the doctor starts talking to him about it again and again. This makes Duncan feel very stressed. That's when he gets a call from Alistair in which he tells Duncan that whenever I was using your computer I accidentally deleted one of your important folders. He says that it was a folder if presentations. Duncan gets very angry because he has been working on it for the last year. At the same time, he starts to get pains in his stomach. He comes home with his wife and rushes to the toilet. When he gets out, he starts talking to his wife about raising his family, but again he starts to get sharp pains in his stomach. He goes to the toilet and starts to lighten up again. Now Sarah is disturbed by the loud noises and sleeps with earphones in her room. On the other hand, Duncan starts screaming in the toilet. He also seems to be in a lot of pain. Then suddenly he becomes unconscious. At that moment, a strange creature comes out from his body. It's a fast-moving creature that goes to Duncan's office. There it attacks Alistair and kills him at the spot. Then it comes back and enters Duncan's body. The next morning, when Duncan's eyes opened, he feels a little weird. He sees on TV that Alistair has been brutally murdered by a kind of creature. The news shocks him because it all happens so suddenly. Now Duncan goes to his office and sees that there is blood everywhere in his cabin. He talks to his head about it. He tells him that at night an animal came to Alastair's cabin and attacked him. Then his head introduces him to a client which Duncan hires him. Then Duncan starts explaining his company scheme to this client. He meets a lot of clients but he can't satisfy anyone and he was new to the job anyway. His head sends him home to get some rest. After that, Duncan came back to the hospital and started to get treatment from the doctor. The doctor feigns him and puts a camera in his anus and starts looking for the same polyp. Then suddenly a small creature appears in his camera and the doctors and nurses get scared when they see it. Then the creature attacks the doctor and eats his face. Then all of a sudden Duncan wakes up. It was just a dream of his. The next day, Duncan gets very stressed with his dream and comes to the same therapist and tells him the whole story. He tells Duncan to hypnotize him. Then the therapist starts hypnotizing him. He starts to ask him a lot of questions and then there is sudden pain in his stomach. At the same time, a creature seems to be coming out from his body which was very little and looking quite scary. The therapist is quite surprised to see it. When he tries to attack him, the creature attacks him and cuts behind him. The therapist somehow separates him from his body and starts lifting Duncan. Duncan regains consciousness and starts screaming. After seeing this creature, the creature also starts screaming. While seeing Duncan, the creature then breaks the window and runs off. They were both very worried about this creature. The therapist took out his own book and started to find out about the creature. The therapist explains that this creature is first generated from the body of human beings and it's made of the dark side of human beings as well as if you try to kill him you can die too. If you want to avoid this creature you have to bond with him whenever the creature will find you so you don't have to make him angry. Duncan becomes even more upset when he hears this. Suddenly that creature again comes there. They are shocked to see him. The therapist tells Duncan to try to bond with him. That's what Duncan does. He tries his best to talk with him with great love and affection. Duncan realizes that he is hurting someone while seeing blood on his face. He kept his name Milo. Therapist detects his manner that he is now penetrating Duncan's stomach again. After that, he goes to his house. He also gets nervous because there is a creature living in his body. When his eyes open in the morning. He begins to remember the words of the therapist in which he says that you have to live to relax while controlling this creature. He then goes to his office where he is told by his fellow employer that one of his employer account balances suddenly becomes zero. On hearing this, he gets very upset and talks to his head. His head tells him that this is his problem. You can do one thing, you can maintain his account from someone else's account, but Duncan replies that this work is illegal. When he gets out of the office, he gets a call from a therapist. He asks Duncan to watch the breaking news on phone. The news is that last night another creature killed a doctor, but they both knew that this was done by Milo. Duncan gets even more upset when he hears the news. Therapist tells him how to keep Milo under control. He asks Duncan, where is your father? But he doesn't know where his father is. He says that you have to find your father and talk to him about it. In the next scene, we see Duncan arriving at his dad's house with the help of an address. His dad's name was Rajat. He lived in an old house. He tries to talk to his dad about it, but his dad refuses to talk about it. Here Duncan gets angry, which causes him to have a sudden stomachache, and he suddenly goes to the bathroom where Milo goes out of his stomach and wants to attack his dad, but Duncan forbids him to do so. He somehow manages to get him back into his body. He comes out and again tries to talk to his dad, but he forbids him again. After that, he comes to his office and Nervy starts looking for food for Milo, but he doesn't find anything. He then gives the mouse in his office to Milo's food. Suddenly his employee comes there and she hears noises of eating something, but Duncan says that because of his stomach pain. Seeing this, Duncan starts talking to his head. He asks what is going on and what will happen to our investment. We will lose all our money. His head tells him that he should have thought about it before now. I can't do anything because the government is closing his office now. At the same time, Duncan gets angry and Milo comes out of his body and starts attacking his head. Duncan tries to stop him, but he can't, and the elevator closes. Duncan comes down to the stairs, but that time it's too late, that Milo had eaten his head badly. He calls to police and says that the creature has killed another man. Then he comes home and tells Sarah that now his company has been taken over by the government and all this money is wasted, as well as all our savings are gone. Sarah ignores him and tells him that she is pregnant. Duncan becomes happy to hear such great news, but Duncan seems to be stressed and feels an ache in his stomach. Milo is trying to get out, but Duncan thinks that if Milo comes out it can harm his unborn child, so he decided to leave a house for some time and stay in a hotel until his new baby borns. Then we see that Duncan is taking care of Milo very well. He tries to feed him animal food, but he forbids him to eat it because he just wanted human flesh. He somehow tries to keep him away from humans so that it doesn't attack anyone. After some time, Duncan gets a call from Sarah in which she says that her family arranged a party to celebrate her pregnancy. Sarah invites him to the party and requests him to come home. Duncan then calls his dad to meet with a therapist. Duncan asks him some questions, but his dad refuses to answer any of his questions. He says that I have not come here to answer any question. Then Duncan gets angry and Milo starts trying to come out. At the same time, his dad's stomach also starts in pain, and as soon as he sees it, the same creature starts coming out from inside his dad, which was exactly like the same, but it was weaker and older than Milo. Here we can understand that there is a genetic problem in Milo's family. Well, the two creatures look at each other and start fighting with each other. As Milo cuts into the other creature's hand, we find out that he is attached to his owner, which means it hurts Duncan's dad's hand. Roger then attacks Milo with a bottle, which has a direct effect on Duncan. Now Milo takes a knife and attacks Roger's creature. Milo repeatedly attacks him with a knife, which affects Roger, and Roger is seriously injured. Now Duncan tries to calm down Roger, and Roger tells him that he's glad that Sarah is pregnant. Upon hearing the news that Sarah is pregnant, Milo gets angry and starts going to Sarah's house. Roger and therapist tell Duncan to hurry up and save Sarah. When Duncan comes out, he sees his car, which Milo badly damaged it. Then he tries to call Sarah, but she can attend the phone because she is busy at the party. Now Duncan runs towards his home, and this is the same scene that was seen at the beginning of the movie. He comes to her house and asks Sarah to hide. She asks him what happened, but he still tells him to hide. Sarah didn't understand anything. Milo then breaks the door and attacks Duncan. Duncan explains to Milo that Sarah is not at home, but Sarah asks Duncan if everything is fine outside. When Milo hears her voice, he gets angry and jumps into the water pipe. Duncan tries his best to stop him, but he can't. Milo exits the basement pipe below. Sarah is frightened when she sees Milo for the first time. Duncan tries to open the basement door, but Sarah locked the door from inside. Inside, Milo attacks Sarah and knocks her unconscious. Milo is about to be harmed her. Duncan breaks the door, comes inside and takes Milo away from Sarah. She runs out from there, but Milo attacks Duncan's hand and goes outside. When Milo comes out, everyone is shocked and scared to see him. Then Duncan comes out with an axe and attacks him and cuts off his hands and feet. He tells him to stay away from my wife, but by doing so his hands and feet also stop working. Then Duncan takes him in his lap and wraps him in a cloth. Her mother says that this thing must have ended with her dad Roger. His mother apologizes to him for hiding this matter from him, so he forgives him. Duncan comes in and tells Sarah everything. He says that it's part of my body. He puts Milo in his body. Now they both hug. After some time, Sean ships a few months ahead, and we see that Duncan is preparing for his upcoming baby, as well as Duncan has opened the company of his own, and he starts telling his office people about the importance of his family members. But the fact is, there is a new baby is growing in Sarah's womb. There is one creature like Milo is also growing. Whenever he will born, a similar creature comes out from his stomach. The movie ends here. Subscribe the adventure recaps for more content like this, and also leave a comment if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Until next time. Thanks for watching.